What's going on? What's going on? What's going on? High Scholar here. We're back with another Destination Unknown. This is the third installment of our Destination Unknown. I'm still joined with Dr. Ferg. Dr. Ferg, give people a shout out.
Hey, hello, good people. Hello. Thank you for having me again.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. I'm glad you decided to join me. Our episode this week actually had a teaser. I had a epiphany, if you will, and really wanted to share with the people what our next episode is going to be about. And this episode today is really going to be about the black male educator and his journey navigating the low boiling contempt that our community has for black boys and black men. Um, it's going to be more of a rant. This is not necessarily going to be something super scholarly, even though there are books and and articles about this topic. But I think it's a particularly interesting topic that I've kind of discussed before, but I want to be a little more direct in understanding that it comes the experience that black male educators have in the classroom and in the schools really come from or and are rooted in this low boiling contempt that our community has for black boys and black men overall. I'm gonna start off really by just talking about um, really identifying how our community has this low boiling contempt for black boys and black men, and how black male educators find themselves in a particular place. Um, we know because we've been told that there's a necessity for black male educators, whether that be at the elementary level or even even higher. We recognize that there's a necessity for more black males to be in front of our children, especially the black community needs more black men to be in schools. That's always been talked about. But I feel like we get lost in that conversation of what that experience is really going to be like for the black male educator. Me, myself, I've taught everything from middle school, high school, and into college. And to say that my experience was not unique and that I found myself dealing with people who may have already had an animosity or had a discontent with me even before any behavior or action that I ever performed in their presence. Um, I always had to address issues of either a lack of experience. So some of my students lacked the experience of a black male as a teacher, a black male as an authority figure, um, and having to listen to and follow the directions of a black man. And if this is your first experience with a black man, and you know, this is going to be difficult. And I found that those who either are not open to that experience wholeheartedly because they have this low boiling contempt, make this a very difficult um, task for both of us. Like my goodness, like it's going to be a task for us to go back and forth throughout this entire year. And you know, it's not just the my experience with black girls, because I talked about this in a communal sense. Like as a black man in the community, I have to experience that people have talked down on all black men. And even though I'm a black male educator in the classroom, because teachers love children, I'm not given that kind of same credence. I'm not given that same credibility, and I'm seen as, if I'm not a coach, I'm I'm just getting a paycheck. I'm just another man in the building, and um, that is. I'm not saying that my experience is every black man who's an educator's experience. I'm never going to say that, but to act like when black men are in our schools, when black men are in our classrooms, that they're getting the same respect from students as well as from administration and other staff members. I can't say that's the case. I feel like there's been situations where I've had to understand that there's something else afoot here. There's something else that's contenting our experience. There's something else that is causing me to get um, uh, disrespect or real terse conversation, short, people being short with me and me not understanding why. And I had to I talked about in the previous video being frustrated with getting assignments and duties that I feel like are extraneous to my job as a classroom teacher of a core subject, or even a teacher at the university and college level. These, there's something that you want me to do beyond my call, what my role may call for, and even more so because there's a lack of experience that students may have with people who look like me, and if not a lack of experience, you've already been told who I am entirely and how I would treat you. Um, you don't give me any kind of um, space to learn who I am, and you actually already have a disdain and dare I say hate for who I am and what I could represent. Now I know I went on for a minute there, but I mean I just had to really kind of talk about like there's this low bullying contempt within the black community for black men and black boys. And when we find ourselves in these particular roles where we're serving the community as we think we are, we may still find ourselves dealing with that contempt, dealing with that disdain, dealing with that being, feel like, it's off putting. It's really like, um, I know that I'm a nigga with a PhD, but I also feel like I'm a nigga who's teaching children oftentimes because I'm not going to get the same respect that I feel like a human being who's taking on this role as a teacher may get from students. And I feel like it's a truly sad situation, but um, I, I've come to understand what it really means and have to stand on my 10 toes about who I am and who I always will be in the classroom while navigating that low bullying contempt. Now, I'm not sure if you're on mute still or if you're saying anything, but that's where I wanted to start the conversation. I wanted to be able to respond to any questions that you may have or people in the chat may have about the low bullying contempt that um, black male educators experience. Now, it is different for me from middle school to high school to college. In college, I felt like I experienced way more um, contesting of my authority. Like, am I the end all be all when it comes to the grading system, or how the content of the class and how the class functions? So that those are the three kind of main questions. Do you have the authority? Who can I talk to about how the classroom, how the course functions, and if I have an issue with you, either how the class functions in your grade, who above you can I talk to get you in order, to get you to do what I think you should do, because there's no way this black male professor knows the ins and outs of what they're supposed to do. They don't have that intellectual capabilities, and that comes from those stereotypes and really contrite and small ways of looking at black men as a whole. So to find us in these roles, sometimes we're treated as an anomaly, but you're an anomaly that you don't fall far from the tree of all black men. And in some ways, I believe that. But as an educator navigating the low bullying contempt, it's a experience that um, if you have a desire to teach black children, sometimes it's thankless because you know that something is tending this experience, and it may be that this black child doesn't have positive experiences with black men or hasn't had a positive experience with black men, and or the narratives around what their experiences have been or should be are being controlled, are being directed, and they're being directed to develop this low bullying contempt that we oftentimes deal with. In a social space, it's just walking up to the cashier and you're happy to serve everybody else, but when I come along, I'm just a hassle. And when that comes to conversations in schools and engaging with students, middle school, high school, and college, you have to find ones, as we always talk about in this space, that appreciate you for who you are and the unique things that you bring to the space. So they start learning that no, you're a black male teacher, and black male teachers do and bring something to this school space and the classroom space that is particularly unique. I don't compare you to the other identities because what they bring to the classroom is particularly unique too. Now, that's not always going to be the case. And oftentimes, whenever that is not the case, they can't see this because they have the tint of lowballing contempt. I'm frustrated that black boys and black men haven't made a better community for me. They're the reason why the school is seen as bad. There's all these reasons why lowballing contempt can seep into the classroom and the schools and the interactions that a black male teacher will have with the students.
My goodness.
Yeah, I went on for a minute there.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing and kind of unpacking that. One of the things that came to mind as you was talking was the you know, I know it could be a rant, but the scholastic part of some the psychology popped out to me a little bit, thinking about those mental models when you kind of just talked about the preconceived notions that the community can have, in opposing an individual by marking them to be in this other community some that's not always valued. And, really just thinking about how you talked about those mental models, of various people still being like influenced by the community. So not only are the students having particular mental models that's um, creating these experiences and making for these outcomes, but those mental models of the students are also influenced by others, like their parents, as well as the other adults that they respect or may not respect in their shared space. But I appreciate you, kind of having that understanding of the value in being around those people who kind of surround you and appreciate you and continue to do the uplifting or whatnot. And those people kind of being ever present. But I think I am taken aback by the ever presence of those who could just kind of call out, those who could just devalue so much or just not really be kind of appreciating. Like I didn't realize that there were so many people that existed with the low boiling contempt. I thought it was more a smaller number than I've come to learn in the present day. Can you kind of talk about, like,
Well, the numbers can't be small, and the reason why I'm glad people like Kevin Samuels and BGS and others have called out this low boiling contempt that our community has is because it's been baked in. So when you look at the media that has been produced and mass produced, um, the image of black men and black boys brews this kind of low boiling contempt that our community is going to have for us. Black boys and black men are seen to blame for the conditions in which our community exists in. Even, 20, 30 years after kind of the mainstay of many of the things that caused, what they would say what caused our community to collapse. We've been in mass incarceration for 30, 40 years at this point. Um, the numbers of black men in our community have been affected by this in many ways. What I understand is that I'm an anomaly. I cause cognitive dissonance for a lot of students at all ages because black men stereotypically have been seen as uneducated, unintelligent, and lacking a desire to be such. And here you go, coming trying to tell me that you have done those things and that you are educated and that you may be qualified to be even teach me something. So again, like I said, this is the first time, oftentimes, that they've been in this position where they have to take direction, education, delegation from a black male, and the response to that sometimes is oftentimes what exposes the low boiling contempt. Like, why do you have an issue with me telling you to get these things started? Why do you have an issue with my critiques of your paper? And you think that the critiques are unjust? Um,
mm,
there's it's understanding that there may be a refusal. There may be something that may be inhibitive to teaching and learning that shouldn't be here. And you have it sometimes ethnically, just between we talked about it, between a white teacher and a black child. I'm now seeing the generations of black media, black communal conversations about what black boys and black men should be and where they should be. That's had an effect. And
mm,
being a black male in a classroom and in a school, outside of seeing me as an extra layer of security, or extra body for a coaching staff, if I'm purely focused in on academics and teaching and learning of students of all ages, I may experience, and not may, let me stop being, let me stop pussyfooting. It's really going to be an experience of navigating the perception of black men, and oftentimes your contempt of black boys and black men that's been developed and steeped in an environment of our community that will validate that idea that black boys and black men are the source of your ire. If they would be better, your life would be better. And this one in front of you may be just being a jerk, just being asinine, or any other negative negative characteristic of what a teacher could be, because he's a black male. That's why he's not a good teacher. That's why you don't like him. It's all it's kind of cyclical at a point where um, you don't have this role in your life as frequently, and when it does show up, it lets you down. When it does show up, it always is. It's been described and narrativized around you to be a detriment, and your life would be better when they're not around. And
Even though
now you run
true.
into me in the classroom.
Even though that's not the truth, because studies and show that there's positive effects of having black men around. Like they be around their kids, they be helping around the house more. They're more loving, and not their contributions in society, regardless of them being able to always reap the full reward or whatnot. So it is interesting that that exists.
I mean, and the relationships that I'm able to cultivate in learning spaces very quickly are those who already have an experience with black men like me. And that could be men who are just hard workers and have a work ethic where they go to work every day and have the expectation of their children, or of whatever their role is in their life. They could be educated men who believe that this child cannot be aloof. This child cannot be aloof. They cannot be in the world and things happening around them in their community, or in the broader world that they're not exposed to. I'm not here as an adult in your life just to pacify you, just to allow you to be who you are entirely. I see my role as a molding role. I need to have an effect on you where you are actually advance and move forward. It's not always about. It's actually never about coddling. Whenever I find myself in this role, and that's where some of the low boiling contempt conflict comes from. I'm used to this being a space that may be, how as I perceive it, more nurturing, how I perceive it, more aesthetically pleasing, and how I perceive it, more geared towards a different identity being the teacher in front of me.
But
So I
still
think that
emerging sometimes.
it's a cognitive dissonance that they're really experiencing. But as much as they have that cognitive dissonance, it's not like they don't have an understanding of what black boys and black men are. What they're doing is applying those stereotypes and those sociological perspectives that they've learned through media, through conversations in their household about who black men are, who black boys are, what your engagement with them should be. They now bring that into the classroom with a black male teacher,
Mm.
and it's not always conducive when the black male is the teacher that the student has contempt, or that the staff around him has contempt, or the administration.
Yeah. I they made. I just remember during my upbringing and coming through the academy that they made it seem like my forefathers had came before me and took up space and created a space for me to be in as a scholar. And I was very shocked and surprised when I started seeing the numbers. Like it wasn't appearing as they kind of projected to be as it relates to how many opportunities that black men have in education to even be in leadership and administration, um, and kind of like I said, even as teachers, they're not being granted the full authority of their dominion within their role. Just blows my mind.
Well, it's the perception that of what black men have been able to accomplish, and you have to insert some kind of patriarchal conversation to even make it seem that way. I remember in graduate school, I was at a gathering, And at graduate school gatherings, people have these intellectual pontification conversations. I don't like it. I like to enjoy the social
Mm-hmm.
event. I'm much more of a socialite, but somehow we had slipped down this slope of black men in the academy and how
Yeah.
they have dominated. This was the person's words. I remember they say they have dominated the academy for 100 years before black women had got a chance to be in the academy. And I was fucking thrown. I was like, how? Where did you see this? Where have you seen this domination of black men in the academy? And her one name she kept throwing down was W.B. Du Bois,
Mm-hmm.
and I was like, that's the Negro. That's the one. Like, what? Do you, like, I'm a history mind, so I'm like, he's the one at that time. Like, there's not a whole bunch of Negroes going through the American colleges and universities. Where's like, to her that signified the 100 years of black men having a chance to be in education before black women who now, you're pointing to, there's a different demographic and dynamic of their presence in the academy, and very few are talking about black men's space in the academy, um, because part of the low boiling contempt, what it allows for it to happen is what would normally happen to black men and black boys anyway, which is invisibility, um, labor and the exploitation of your labor. All those things are going to happen intrinsically now to them as individuals, and no one's going to bat an eye and nobody's going to turn their head.
Mm. I was just you mentioned earlier with the students, the perception of a more nurturing um, personality being perceived or misperceived, and it
Right.
just made me think about what I've witnessed of um, a low boiling, you know, bias and oftentimes rooted in hatred. It seems come
Mm-hmm.
from um, black men or black boys in some of these educational environments. I remember, oftentimes perceiving, the gender to be a more pleasant, um, in personality, nicer, and was very shocked and surprised to see, when it would be different. And so sometimes when a black male educator could kind of mention that the black girls could have some challenges, I could see a lot of people struggling to understand what challenges they're presenting.
Well, I mean, some of the difficulty is in, if you haven't experienced, um, there are things that are kind of endemic in teaching, like that come with it. Like, you will play so many roles when you're trying to help students learn. So the reason why I mentioned nurturing is because there's this perception in our community that there's only one gender or sex that's going to be providing the nurturing, and that when you engaging with because so many of us experience it from the mother. So when you come into a school, as this place that makes us feel safe or unsafe, oftentimes students can easily find, women in the school building that they feel comfortable enough with as a kind of home base to, confide in and to push themselves to, achieve academically. The students who are able to harness the power of the nurturing that black men in a building provide oftentimes have an experience with us outside of it. They can take the push, the sternness, as much as the love and affection that's appropriate for that space, in a way that if you don't have that experience, you will, clap back and snap back. You will think that this person doesn't like you, and that's the reason why they have an axe to grind. You won't understand that they really are trying their damnedest to maybe make you a better person, and it's not through, lilies and flowers. A lot of young people have, I've found, especially middle and high school, until they've met a black male teacher who wants to nurture them beyond assuaging their carnal desires. So sometimes they've been in a space where they're not unkept, they're not, they're being actually well provided for, and that's their detriment. They're actually being given everything that you could possibly desire as a middle school and high school young person, and what they really need is somebody to push them. They need somebody to tell them that you have to apply yourself. They need somebody to tell them, no, you are wrong, and I'm not going to allow you to go around it. You have to go through it, and that is still a form of love. That is still a form of affection. That no, I'm going to hold your hand. I'm going to be there with you. Like some people misunderstand, like the drill sergeant, and in the sense that the drill sergeant is just going to be hooping and hollering and yelling, and it's like while also in the dirt with you, while also in the mud with you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the best coaches that I've ever had were the coaches that, while they were telling us to run, they could run with us. They told us, I'm out there with you, and I'm not just telling you that I want you to be better just for me. I'm telling you I want you to be better for you. I'm
Mm.
only investing in you, and that type of nurturing is something sometimes like, yeah, I want you to be a better you, but I want you to feel good while you're doing it. That may not come with the black male educator, the black male coach. Um, and again, if you don't have that experience or you have been steeped in the space that tells you that you should have this low boiling contempt because they haven't done much for you, they are to be tossed aside. They are the people who are supposed to be doing things for you for cheap labor. You're going to have a difficult time when you're in a space where you're supposed to be getting pushed to be better.
Mm. Yeah, because it truly is valuable to me, all things that black men give off. So I do wish they could be respected as valuable more often. And, I just remembered, hearing you speak to how that generational conversation between a parent um, who may have be sharing that low boiling content to a child, and contempt and to a child, and how that can affect the classroom environment. Uh, because
Well,
I was taught that to some degree that they come with a blank slate, not so even being reminded of um, the preloading. Like what are we scaffolding our children towards when it comes to engaging their black male educators?
because I mean, there's going to be a conversation on how these teachers are supposed to be treated. This still is can be under a general kind of devaluing of the teacher role. I'm not sure
Mm,
teachers as a role has been seen as one that needs to be exalted in the same way that it used to be, but especially because many of the social roles that black men in our community have played, like the preacher, um, there's other roles that have seen a devaluing as well. I think that I've mentioned the other roles that people expect me to be in. So, like
yeah.
in my current space, people call me coach. They say, "Hey, how you doing, coach? How you doing, coach? How you doing, coach?" And it's crazy because I coach nothing. I don't coach one sport. I don't coach even chess or a club. I'm purely a classroom teacher, and I've done that in many years. Like I've coached before, but it's been I would be in a space 2 or 3, even 4 years before I start doing that because I want to be respected as a classroom teacher. I'm an intellectual as much as I enjoy sport. So I just find that that's a kind of a Freudian slip, if you will, of how even other adults in these buildings will see you. Even other black men in the buildings will see you. And I'm not going to even limit this to like this is something that only I'm experiencing from black girls and black women. No, black boys will have a low boiling contempt for you and provide behaviors that will exhibit that. Other black men who are staff and administrators, they'll show it and kind of, hey man, you need to watch the back door and make sure you step out your classroom and tell those kids to go. I'm not going back and forth with other children, young people, students, because they already come from a place of wanting to go back and forth because of the low boiling contempt. So you're going to create more and more situations where, me as a black male educator, I'm yelling at students in the hallway and barking down the hallway on what students should be doing or not doing. And I don't believe that is my role. I believe that is, adding to the problem that we have. I feel like as a community, we need to have more, the purpose of what I'm doing is really kind of talking about like, are we really understanding how we are presenting black men in the black male image has an effect on a population of educators we say we need more of? You
Mm.
told me we need more black male educators, and the reason why we come into the space, we stay 2 years, stay 3 years. I know plenty of black male educators who they came and got their lumps and they would never come back. And the part of the reason is it is a full circle of people who see you as less than, who think you should take them seeing you as less than, and if you don't, they develop a deeper attitude, a deeper discontent about you not liking that you not see yourself as less than,
Mm.
and that even includes people who may be your students. And when it becomes your students or parents, that's when you start really thinking about what are my other career choices.
Especially even I hear with some of the leadership as well. That also push you to ask that question. It's
Because
crazy.
I mean,
The
I
direction, multi-directional.
yeah, I don't. I mean, the part that has always pushed me out of buildings have been when the staff and administrators also are pushing it. I've had to find strategies to navigate when administrators are trying to give me these kind of extraneous roles that go beyond me being an instructional teacher and just basic duty. So when I start feeling like I'm being coached to be an additional security guard or um, to be presented as a physical, bulldog in a space, so students can fear me and fear coming on the hallway. I've always stepped away from that. I've always made sure, made sure that that's not the case. That's not a role I'm going to take on, because that adds to the low boiling contempt. Like the low boiling contempt is already there because of our lack of presence, or when we're present from the media image as well as from how it's been narrativized, we're only there in a demeaning and brutish kind of way. So I don't want to be that. I don't want to be that in these students' lives. And I feel like I want the low boiling contempt to clear so that we can just focus on teaching and learning, and I can have a benefit on the lives of young people.
Yes, 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 yes.
But we're getting about, we're almost at about 35 minutes here. I just kind of talked about my purpose, and I'll probably, you have any more questions or anything that you want me to address before I start trying to sign off of here?
No, not immediately.
Okay, well, thank you for joining me again, this high scholar. Talking about black male educators and navigating the low boiling contempt that is a result of our, community. It's mainly intracommunal, between black folk, and it's something that we really need to address so that if we say we want more black men in the classrooms and in schools, we need to create a space for them to have the greatest effect on our young people, and that goes for the students, that goes for the other staff and faculty, as well as administrators. Like black male educators shouldn't have to navigate um, a certain disdain or discontent for who they are as an individual. They shouldn't have to um, counsel um, because you didn't have a father, or that you've been told your father's a certain type of person, that that you now have to emulate that discontent with all the black men in your life. Um, that's something that's been normalized and narrativized. I mean, normalized or become normal in our community. That you can be just angry because you don't have a daddy, or be angry because of who your dad is or who your grandfather was, um, and you can now carry that badge, especially if you bump into another black male who's trying to be, an educator. Um, I think that we need to need to push past that. We need to move past that. We need to be able to address it whenever we see it. Like, no, I think that parents should be able to intercede when they understand that you're creating problems in this man's classroom because he's a black man, and or you're creating problems in the school because you feel like that's the role of a black boy, and you're actually making it more difficult for other black boys in the school. So there's a lot of conversation that we can continue having here. I just wanted to, put this out there. Part of it was just self-soothing, and if that's purely the whole point of this, I'm okay with that. Um, but understand that black male as educators, we are going into a school with people who are living in a broader society, and I'll be stupid or blind to try to act like I'm not experiencing what media and society tells people around me. They say who I am, and that people will try to address me and engage with me in that way, and I shouldn't have to, but that's going to be the case anyway. As I say all the time, this high scholar, I'm always amazed, but I'm never surprised.
Dr.
All right,
Fur,
Dr. Ferd.
happy to hear. Always happy to be here, giving the listening ear, taking in a lot of knowledge and information and sharing experience.
I appreciate you always, and I look forward to hearing what our next couple of shows going to be about, and what we continue to talk about. The more we do it, the more we get better at producing these things, and got some music going on, and um, that's starting to add some production value to what we got going on here. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for engaging with us tonight.
I
Try
do
to
want
make
to go on the record saying one more thing, and that's just love black men. Black men deserve to be loved. Black men are loved, and I love black men, and I wish more love for black men as well.
thank you for that. Thank you for that. Y'all take it easy tonight. Peace.